Okay, we will go ahead and call this meeting to order at 6:31. Let's start with public comments. Oh, hang on. We have a thing over in the middle.
Hi, did I hear a request for public comments?
Hey.
Okay, hi, my name's Jordan Mayer, and I own the home up at the top of Hathaway Trail on the left-hand side. And I saw this on the agenda, so I'm kind of curious what the committee is thinking about with regard to Hathaway Trail.
Okay. Yep. So we will hop into that here a little ways down the agenda, and by all means, if you have questions as we're going through, just make sure you raise your hand and get recognized by me, and we will get you into the conversation. Okay.
Okay. It's also quite possible Anthony Gaglio, who owns the other home up at the top of Hathaway across the street from me, he's aware of this meeting. He said he was going to try to attend. So if he hops on, that's his present. That's why he would be present.
Perfect. Yeah, I'll give a brief overview of what's prompting the conversation when we start.
Terrific. Thank you.
Okay. Any other public comments? I have a public comment. Yay. A very friendly reminder that items for our agenda are due before the agenda comes out. We had a few emails come in after the agenda came out. We just want to remind everybody that according to public meeting law, we need to have this agenda out to you guys by the Friday prior to our Tuesday meeting. Okay, second Tuesday of the month, so that will be the first Friday of the month. We need to have those agenda items. Earlier than that is even better, so that we can make sure that we get everything on there. Okay. Any other public comments? Yes.
When we all voted and decided on the name for the forest, the Overtone Forest, is there a sign being made?
That will actually come up during our grants updates,
Okay.
because that's part of one of the grants that we applied for. But we'll get to that for sure. Okay. With no other public comments, we will move into additions or changes to the agenda. I don't have any. I think we're all set there. We're going to approve the minutes for the September 14th meeting. Did we have enough people here to vote? Yeah, we have enough people to vote. Okay. So I need a motion to approve the minutes of the September 14th meeting.
I need to pass the meeting agenda.
Paul moves on. I'm going to clean that up a little bit. Paul moves to approve the minutes of the September 14th meeting. Can I have Patricia seconds? All in favor? Tommy?
Aye.
There you go. I think that's it. Perfect. It's okay. Okay, so a good chunk of this meeting is going to be spent kind of going over what was discussed at the previous meeting with Tread Lightly, and what ends up turning into a bigger conversation about the use of motorized vehicles on town trails. So Jordan, at our previous meeting, we had some gentlemen from an organization called Tread Lightly. It's a national organization who works very closely with people who operate, four-wheeled vehicles and do trail riding and things like that. They were looking to assist us in the repair of the, I don't know if you've been further out from your house on Hathaway Trail, but there's a rather large mud hole in the middle of the trail that's in need of some repair. So they came to speak to us about that. And again, it has prompted this larger conversation, which the town of Dover has never officially had nor made a decision on, about the use of motorized vehicles on what are technically trails within the town of Dover. So that's a bit about where that discussion went last time. You can also, if you wanted to catch up All of our Trails and Recreation Committee meetings are featured right on our economic development website, discoverdover.com, so you can see what it is that they have to say in addition to what we'll be talking about tonight. Does anyone have any thoughts or opinions on the conversation we had with Tread Lightly at the last meeting?
I actually walked the trail shortly after that, and there's an enormous slush as you enter the trail. Is that what they're talking about? Repairing?
Yeah.
So it's
Where this gentleman's house is?
pretty far from that.
Oh,
It's
okay.
north of that, or northwest, past where the trail crosses Johnson Hill Road with the marsh
So
ground
maybe I
line is.
didn't
And
know
it's
that.
even a little bit past that.
Right. Because just going into the trail, it was impossible to walk into it without getting a whole boot like it's.
Mhm.
I mean, I imagine it's not dangerous from the point of view of people getting stuck like they are on the other one, but it still looks pretty in need of something there.
Yeah.
So just the spot that we were talking about is impassable.
Right, okay.
Even when jeeps go back there, when bushes, and we definitely can't walk. We could walk through the woods to go around it, but it's
Yeah.
like a 3 foot deep mud pit.
I imagine
Okay.
that this area would become impossible very quickly if a lot of vehicles went over it.
Yeah, so I think that's kind of where we're headed with this, right? I mean, to this point, Andy, I don't believe we've ever had a conversation about the use of motorized vehicles on trails, correct?
No, we haven't had many conversations, and we've never actually done anything. The situation with the trails has just been more or less hands off to this point. The road guys will occasionally do some work out there, but basically it's been unregulated to this point, which hasn't worked out terribly. I do have some comments whenever you think is appropriate. I didn't want to just jump in and start talking.
The floor.
So basically, I think that the Tread Lightly folks brought to light a situation that we might want to think about and plan for, where the motorized use is increasing out there. It might be time for the town to actually think about what we'd like to see on these trails. It's a very difficult and complicated question because the trail network out there's a huge amount of national forest and town forest on the border between Dover and Wardsboro, including both towns. And there's a ton of trails out there, some of which are legal town trails of the town of Dover. Some are legal town trails for the town of Wardsboro. Some are vast trails. Some are vast trails which the National Forest Service has approved. Some are vast trails which they have not yet approved. And there's other trails which are unapproved trails in the town forest. There's trails on private property. There's a number of camps out there accessed by people who own them by motorized vehicle. There's a lot of different players, and if we want to think about this and be proactive about how we deal with it, I think starting a conversation is a good idea that will probably include the National Forest Service and probably the town of Wardsboro, maybe some user groups like this Tread Lightly group and an ATV group. Perhaps there's a lot of ATV use out there, motorized adventure bikes and dirt bikes. And I think maybe this group could be a good place to sort of have that conversation if we want to go forward and have that conversation. I believe the legal status of the trails is that they are not class 4 roads, but legal trails. And without having consulted an attorney, I believe the select board has the ability to limit different uses on these trails. But we'd want to talk to an attorney about that. The select board may need to adopt a policy for that. In my mind, it's a big question with a lot of moving parts, a lot of interested people, a lot of stakeholders, and we should probably start the conversation.
So as Andy was just stating, the gentleman from I don't remember the name of his company, but the gentleman who ran the guide service for the Jeeps, Ron, it seems he spoke incorrectly that that it's not, Hathaway Trail is not in fact, excuse me, a class 4 road in the town of Dover. It is actually classified as a town trail. And Andy gave us the information here, and I'll just read it quickly. It says trail means a public right of way which is not a highway and which previously was designated town highway having the same width as the designated town highway or a lesser width if so designated, or a new public right of way laid out as a trail by the selectmen for the purpose of providing access to abutting properties for recreational use. And then Andy highlighted this part for us. It says nothing in this section shall be deemed to independently authorize the condemnation of land for recreational purposes or to affect the authority of the selectmen to reasonably regulate the uses of the recreational trails. So in lay terms, basically telling us because Hathaway Trail is classified as a trail, the select board.
Excuse me, that's wrong. Hathaway Trail is a class 4 trail. We've had a ton of litigation up in that area. We've had representation from significant counsel. It is a class 4 trail. And as such, we have been charged with maintaining that trail. So we plow it, we put down shore pack. We maintain that trail because it does serve our homes, and it's not just for recreational use. So I would take exception to that, and I think that anybody who looks at that as just a recreational trail, it is part of the VIII system, but there are other complications, and part of Anthony and my concern is we spend a fair amount of money on that trail. And to have other vehicles coming in, potentially to ruin the trail, to cause difficulty for us to get to our homes, noise. Whenever I see an off-road vehicle go up there, I want to put a business card for a towing service because odds are they're going to need it. So I think that there's an awful lot of things that we have to get on the table regarding whatever projects or thoughts that this committee has about Hathaway Trail.
Okay, so I want to make a point, Andy, real quick. Thank you for your comments, Jordan. I will ask, I know this is your first meeting with us, I will ask in the future that you wait to be recognized by the chair before you speak, okay?
I'm sorry. And by the way, I don't even know your names.
Oh, okay. I'm Eric DeRocher. I'm the I'm the director of economic development for the town of Dover. We have Paul Fisher here for Deerfield Valley Stone Jumpers. Patricia Sweeney is here for as a business owner representative. We have Allison Ferris, who is a resident representative, and Scott, who is here as an interested resident of the town of Dover. Everybody else online, Tommy joins us from Southern Vermont Trails. Andy is our town clerk. Kristen Mumford sits on our board, and everyone else is a interested member of the public.
Thank you, and I promise to be a good soldier here.
I have Paul and then Andy.
So, hey Jordan, Paul Fisher, we're actually neighbors. We've spoken on the phone, Jordan, so you have a face to go with the name now. As a point of clarification on terminology, so the road between your house and Blue Brook Road is called Hathaway Trail. That's the name of that road. What we're actually talking about is north from your house, the trail. So we're talking about when people go past your house heading north, where they're riding and driving. That's what our concern is about, not the short pack part that's between your house and People's Road. The whole thing, the whole extent of it we refer to as Hathaway Trail, even though the name of your road is also Hathaway Trail.
Okay, so, yeah, so I guess that our concern is traffic preservation of the work that we've done, the maintenance that we have to do, the dollars expended and all of that on, let's call it the lower portion of Hathaway Trail. And we've also had some water issues up there. So some of the things that are done with the trail are to divert water from our homes, it's, you know, et cetera, et cetera. So that's, you know, a few complications. So that in essence those are our concerns.
Thank you. Andy?
Yeah, hi, Jordan. I
Hi,
think we've
Andy.
spoken on the phone a
Sure.
number of times, and
Yes.
your points are well taken. And the legal status of Hathaway Trail, the portion leading up to your house and the portion beyond, you know, I'm just reading the statutes and looking at the official highway map and trying to figure it out before we move forward with any decisions, or before the select board would move forward with any decisions. We'd get that nailed down. You're not the only trail, legal trail in town that accesses a home, and the ordinance we do have that regulates that allows folks, if they want to use a town trail as an access, to get the permission of the select board and maintain it themselves. But, you know, I hear you. If the town of Dover decides we want to invite four-wheel drive vehicles to have fun on Hathaway Trail beyond your home, in my mind, and in no official capacity, you know, I'm behind you. We should step up and help you out with the maintenance of that trail, or take it over as a road, for sure. And you're definitely somebody who needs to be in on the conversation. And more or less, you're illustrating my point that this is a big conversation with a lot of different people involved. And this is the place to start it, I think.
Yeah. And thank you, Andy. And I think that there's also the safety issue, which is a huge issue. And just for the board's edification, there was an Act 250 proceeding because there was a project that was intended further up the road. Medusky owns a bunch of property off of Someday. And there are plans out there that if Medusky ever decides to actually improve the road. So this has been a complicated issue, and the safety was a big portion of those conversations and Act 250 conversations, because it is a rather narrow trail. And people do walk it, they snowshoe it, et cetera, et cetera. So it's just another thing to add to the list.
Tricia?
I have a question because I wrote it in my notes last time. Is the lower portion where this gentleman's property is in the portion after that where the mud bog is all of that? I wrote down Forest Road 273. Is that the technical name of the road besides Hathaway Trail?
I don't.
I don't know why I wrote it down, but it's right next to Marion Trees.
Andy, go ahead.
I think that Tread Lightly was talking about the fact that they had a working relationship with the National Forest to maintain some of the similar trails in the National Forest. This one, to my mind, does not have a road number from the National Forest Service. I haven't seen that on any maps. That might be that the Forest Service designates that road as Forest Road 273, but I think that Forest Road 273 is over in Stratton area, and it's one of the ones they currently maintain for the Forest Service. But those roads are not town rights of way, like this one. But that's how they designate their roads within, internal roads within the National Forest Service.
Allison.
When I was hiking it the other day and I went up, I noticed that when it comes out into that area where you've got the view over the mountain, there was some tarmac car parking area. And I thought, well, how do you access that? Do you go, excuse me, along the road, instead of turning up the Hathaway Trail, you go along that road? I can't remember. That's Google, isn't it? Do you get to it that way, that parking area? And if so, could that be an entrance to the trail and not keep having to go up past this man's property?
Are you saying you walked up the trail, Hathaway Trail, and came, is it an intersection?
No, it was, I think there was a fence and there's a field and a lovely, lovely view. So I stopped to take a photograph. And as I walked into the field and I looked down, I could see a tarmac, a blacktop area.
So that's the top of Someday Road,
Oh,
which is if you start on 100 and go Bluebrook Road,
yeah,
the first road that goes off is Hathaway Trail. And then the next road where you've got 10 houses up on the right is Someday Road. And what you're seeing is the back of a private property that's on the last house on Someday Road.
yeah.
Their property goes up the hill to that fence that you're talking about. That's what you're looking at.
So that area there's not like the public parking. It looked like it was.
You wouldn't be able to get a car there unless you get a car there, I guess, from up Hathaway Trail because that, the bush fence there.
Thank you.
So obviously this is not a thing we solved tonight, right? We wanted to start this conversation, to at least get some general ideas. Andy, you had mentioned, you think that as we continue this conversation, we should be pulling in additional organizations as well?
Well, part of the problem with this being one entrance to a whole trail network is that it leads to a lot of other kinds of trails that have different jurisdictions, that aren't under the control of the select board, that are varying legal statuses, right? So for instance, you go up Hathaway Trail in your ATV or your four-wheel drive truck, and you come to Cheney Brook Trail and you head north. And when you get to the town line, the legal trail status ends. It is no longer a legal trail in the town of Dover. Now you're going into Wardsboro, by what folks call the Bull Monument, is just down the hill into Wardsboro. That portion of the trail is a vast trail through the National Forest, but it's not a legal trail for the town of Wardsboro. And so the use of four-wheel drive trucks over there is not legal as far as the National Forest is concerned. Now it's in the National Forest in the town of Wardsboro. There are other trails that you can access in this network that are legal trails in the town of Dover. You cross the Wardsboro line, same big chunk of woods, and they are legal trails in Wardsboro through the National Forest and through private property to South Wardsboro. There's no signs. There's no signs. You're now leaving the legal trail system of the town of Dover. You go in Hathaway Trail, you come to Cheney Brook Trail, you go right. There are lefts off of that will get you onto unrecognized trails in the National Forest Service that people use their dirt bikes and these four-wheel drive Jeeps that are capable of doing such things, and they go up an old ski-mobile trail, which has been discontinued by VIII and by was never recognized by the National Forest Service, up into the town forest. So if you open one of these trails, if we invite these folks and say, hey, come on in Hathaway Trail, at this point, we're more or less inviting them into a trail network, which we don't necessarily have the right to invite them into. There's a lot of trails out there they shouldn't be on. There's no signage, no gates. Once you start saying, okay, you know, these folks are using this trail, it's legal, the town of Dover is okay with it, you have some kind of responsibility not to invite them to do things the Forest Service doesn't want them to do on their property. We have a relationship with the Forest Service. We want to maintain a good relationship with them. We don't want to overstep our bounds there, or with the town of Wardsboro. You know, hey, you know, we invite you up Hathaway Trail. Many of these trucks just go right down into Wardsboro on that unrecognized trail. I think, yeah, that's the long way of saying, yes, I think we should involve some other organizations when we talk about this huge chunk of woods and huge trail network.
Paul?
So I just wanted to add in, so the guy we're talking about is Ron Harrington, the organization is Ridgeback Trail Services. He gives tours to other people with Jeeps and 4x4, you know, motor vehicles. I actually reached out to him to find out where he takes, exactly what route he takes people through, to understand if he's sticking just to where it's legal or maybe not. And he didn't want to tell me. To him, it was like proprietary for his business as a trail guide. He was nice about it, but he didn't want to share exactly where they go. So we're not sure if they're sticking just to the legal trails or diverging, or, you know, facilitating other people from diverging.
Shannon, do you mind letting Anthony in? There we go. Thank you so much. Okay, Andy, off the top of your head, do you know if there's an active committee or group of people from the town of Wardsboro who talk about trails the way that we do?
No, I'm unaware of any group like that. Okay. But I left out as well, besides the folks who own the trails, the different user groups, you know, to plan intelligently what we want in this incredibly valuable resource. You know, you need to get input from the folks that use it. You know, would it be better if it was just mountain bikes? Do the 4x4s need a place? What places are appropriate? What trails can be built sustainably for which uses? Do we want to exclude a user group from a certain area? All these, not just Wardsboro and the National Forest and whatever private landowners have a stake, but also the user groups. And what do we want to plan for? Our process with Horace Hill, you know, we had that plan, and hey, it was a surprise to me, but everybody wanted disc golf. You know, if we want to plan intelligently about how this resource can be developed or used or not, I think it's a big conversation. Yeah.
I agree. This literally is only just the tip of the iceberg. I think, you know, starting this conversation tonight. If you all find it appropriate, I can start contacting some of these other user groups and interested parties, i.e. the National Forest Service and, you know, the town, you know, a representative of the town of Wardsboro to join us to continue this conversation and move it along a little further. We can get that hopefully set up for next month. The other piece that's included here, and it's on the agenda because I was approached by or contacted by a member of what I don't know how to say, a person who works directly with the Deerfield Valley Stump Jumpers about doing the work to fix the problem on Hathaway Trail prior to winter this year. So we need to kind of, you know, the select board had made a decision to allow that work to be done. That was tabled as soon as Tread Lightly came in. we need to go back to the select board with our recommendation about what we think should or shouldn't be done before snow flies this year. That being said, Paul, if the work is not done, and I can stop. If the work is not done, does that affect the use of Hathaway Trail by the city?
Shouldn't, we have one person in town who maintains the trails in the winter with the snow bloomer. And I've spoken with him, he doesn't think it's a huge deal, once there's snow on the ground, the way it affects us, and I don't think it should affect what this committee does. The way it affects the club is the bookends of the season, so because there's more erosion in that spot, we might start a little bit later or end earlier if we get rain in the season, it could be a brown spot on the trail. Other than that, it's just filled in with snow. I think it's a bigger question for this committee about just overall, four-season erosion in that spot, and not so much for the snow season.
Scott, you have a point?
I just have a question on, has anyone actually identified what the cause of this mud hole is? Is it possibly a natural seep? Then it's actually classified as a wetland. So actually filling it in would actually be a violation of law. This seems like someone who's qualified to make that determination before any group fills it in should find out what's actually causing this mud hole. Because this area is full of springs and seeps. And then you run into foul back to 50. And so just a word of caution before any work is done. I want to have to look at it.
So I know that in my time here at the town, that is not something that's been identified. Andy, prior to me coming to the town of Dover, was that something that was looked at or researched at all?
So, of course, any work that's been done on these town rights of way has been done by our highway guys. They're very well familiar with working in town rights of way. So I'm sure that any permits that were required were gotten. I think probably Act 250 is excluded from the maintenance of town rights of way. I don't know that for a fact, but your point, Scott, is well taken. Last thing we want to do is damage the environment that everybody's going out there to see. I think this is a brand new area for us. I don't think I know our highway guys have worked on legal trails, but I don't think they've been out here to this mud hole. Honestly, I don't. And I know that Act 250 also does not apply in the National Forest. For whatever reason, it belongs to the US government, and their opinion is, hey, the state has no jurisdiction over us. But regardless of whether the state has jurisdiction or not, Scott, your point's well taken. We should definitely protect whatever resources are out there.
Thank you, Andy. So as I'm hearing it now, and you guys can make a motion or not, it seems that this group feels at this point that we should not be doing anything to Hathaway Trail until the decision is, number one, that we do the work to see what's causing the problem, or at least have a general idea. And number two, until we can have a much broader conversation about what it is to give access to vehicles on that trail. Everybody agrees with that? Okay, so I would need a motion from someone on the committee that I take the recommendation to the select board that we hold off on repairs on Hathaway Trail.
I recommend that we hold off on repairs to Hathaway Trail for now.
Do I have a second? Allison seconds. Any public comments on the motion? None, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Tommy.
Eric, can you see Kristen hand
I
up?
can. Hi, Kristen. Is that voting? Is that an aye? that was an aye from Kristen as
Yeah.
well. Okay, I will take that recommendation to the select board, this upcoming Tuesday. And then Anthony and Jordan, as homeowners on Hathaway Trail, we appreciate you being here to be a part of the discussion with us. Please keep an eye on our agendas, our upcoming agendas, so that you can continue to be a part of the conversation and have your voice heard. If you send us your email address, we can actually add you to the list for the agenda that goes out each month. All right. Moving on. The discussion on the RFP for Horace Hill. So this was a late addition to the agenda, and actually, what was it later that day, Tommy, that we heard back from the state on those grants?
Yes, I believe you were CC'd, Eric.
Yep.
The information that I have is we were not invited for. I'm sorry, 1 second, bear with me.
No, I have it. I've read through them a couple of times, if you don't mind.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, so we received notification from the state on Friday that we were not invited to send in our full application for the VIII grant, which was the one that was going to be doing the work on Horace Hill and was the much larger grant. And we're just going to tie these two things together right now, because I feel like if everybody's okay with that, the next agenda item, we're going over grant updates. So as long as everybody's okay with it, I'll speak to it now. We were invited to submit our full application to the URSA grant, which was a little closer to $30,000 to have the work completed that we talked about up at the Dover Town Forest, which was, again, the expansion of the parking lot, some pavilions up there for educational purposes, and gathering purposes up there, as well as covering the costs of a sign, a plaque, and the renaming of the Dover Town Forest to include Bill Bartlett, as we discussed with our first past recommendation. So we will be moving forward with that grant application. Myself with the members of SOVTA, we're supposed to be receiving an email from them within the next week or so with more details on all of the things that we're going to need to have for them to fulfill that grant application. So we'll keep you posted on that. Bringing it back, now that we are not invited to apply for the full grant, the full VIII grant for Horace Hill, it's time for us to have a discussion about, what we want to do with that moving forward. Okay. And in my eyes, because of the work of myself and all of the members of the SOVTA team, in terms of getting this initial grant letter of interest together, we've done a lot of the heavy lifting already to get this project off the ground. We have a completed budget. We have a, not finalized map, but at least a map that shows that all of those things do work together. It does cover the things that are included in the Weston and Sampson Trails plan. In my mind, I think we take a look at that budget again that we submitted with the letter of interest to the grant, maybe make some decisions about what would be included or not included based on the fact that we won't have the full grant money, and talk about, moving this forward as had been originally planned by the town of Dover with, 1% funds from economic development. I'm not a committee member here, I'm the chair, but I do run the department, and one of my number one goals is to see, those types of recreation implemented on the property of Horace Hill as soon as possible, but also being as absolutely amazing as we can possibly be. Okay, which is, we've talked until we're blue in the face about how everybody wants this to be an amazing thing, and we don't want to rush it just for the sake of having something in there. But I think with the work, again, the mapping work done by Steve and Jeremy and the budget writing with the other members of SOBTA, I think we have a good leg up here. So if everybody, on the committee is okay with it, I think our next best move, and Tommy, if you disagree with me here, by all means, jump in, but I think we, again, take another look at that budget, see where we need to spend money to get the project done right now, and take a look at what that looks like to get it off the ground. Does anybody have any thoughts or comments on that? Paul?
Any insight on what Vorak, you want us to apply?
The amount of interest in that grant was immense. The pool of money for the Vorak grant was much larger and suited for much larger projects than what is included in that URSA grant. So there was a lot more, a lot of the towns looking at bigger projects as we are on Horace Hill went after the Vorak grant to complete those projects as opposed to the URSA grant, which was supplying smaller grants to all projects. Tricia?
So I have all these grants written down for miscellaneous grant. So no Vorak, the URSA is being used for the sign for the Forest Hills, or did you mention that?
It's for the Dover Town Forest, so the URSA grant will cover the cost to, again, expand that parking lot, get the pavilions up there, and yes, provide the signage and information recognizing the building.
So you can only go for that one once. There's also a land and water conservation fund that does outdoor recreation facility developments. However, the next round for that, the round for this year is already gone by. So 2022-23.
Yeah, and I'm not in any way saying that, as grants arise, that give us opportunities to complete these types of projects, by all means, we're going to be throwing our hat in that ring. I don't want to see us wait for those grants to get this off the ground, because we could end up delaying the project even longer than we already have, with all the discussions and decision-making that went into, getting to the point that we are at now. Tommy, I see you have your hand raised.
Yes, I think if I hear what you're saying, I'm in agreement that we should move ahead with exploring the RFP for the design of Horace Hill, regardless of the grant status. And if that's what you're saying, I do agree.
Correct. I don't know that the decision will be made tonight to issue that RFP.
Okay.
I think that we have to issue, I think if we had come through with the grant, we were kind of in a time crunch to make sure we got that RFP out, as part of our grant application.
Agreed.
I think now that we are looking at an internal funding model for the project, we have enough time where, again, myself, you and the other members of SOBTA who were involved in the grant writing process can kind of take an in-depth look at that budget and maybe think about, because in the Vorak grant, we applied for the money to complete the project as well as educational money, on top of that. Whereas in order to get this project moving and started, we could potentially take another look at that budget to say, okay, here's what we need to get things built. And as we complete that process, then we have a separate conversation about the educational aspects, after the work is done or as the work is about to be completed. Do you see what I'm saying? Okay. Andy, McLean.
The RFP you're talking about, would that be for design or construction or both?
Tommy?
For both is my understanding, Eric.
Yeah, I mean, in my head, I think, you know, unless we can find enough companies who are one-stop shop, it may end up being an RFP for design and an RFP for implementation. But again, I think we take this next month, you know, because I know that Tommy and Steve and the members of SOBTA did some of the legwork on looking at what companies would be available to complete this type of work for us. And they may have a better idea of whether we have a broad enough scope of companies who can do all of it in one shop, or if we need to split that into 2 RFPs. I guess what I'm looking for tonight is just the committee's blessing to sit back down again and dig into that budget and make a decision about where we're going to go with this project, so that by next month we can have the discussion about, you know, what we're going to do in terms of putting out an RFP. Paul?
I got a quick question. So is putting out the RFP limited by what the budget's going to ultimately be? In other words, can we keep moving forward with the RFP, not knowing exactly what the budget will be, and then we can take the proposals we get, and, you know, whatever fits, whatever we can afford, we'll then spend. But is there a limit? Is there a, you know, critical?
In my experience, it behooves us to have a set budget for the project prior to issuing any RFPs. When you don't issue an RFP, everybody assumes that the town of Dover is paved in gold, and that we will be paying top dollar for all services. And you end up reading through a lot of plans that just don't fit what in your mind was the budget for the project. So my recommendation would be that we need to hammer out this budget with exactly what it will take to have this project built, you know, designed and built, removing, you know, extracurriculars from that at the moment. But what does it take to get the project done as we presented it on Horace Hill? So I'd like to take the opportunity to do that this month and then report back to you guys with that solid, you know, with a solid budget, you know, the map and everything for next month, so that we can then put that in front, you know, we can make a recommendation at that point, if we agree, to the select board to issue that RFP for the work based on the budget we created or adapted, you know, with the lack of those grant funds. So Tricia.
So I had written down in the August meeting that the RFP was for designing. I don't know how you could, I guess I'm just confused. Because it seems like there's gonna be different designers, so there might have to be even more than one, just for more than one RFP. Like there's a guy who does the professional disc golf, who might not know anything about cross country skiing or
Right.
something. So I don't know if I was coherent, but like,
Yeah,
I
no,
guess
and I
I'm
think,
just confused on RFPs.
yeah, and I think
Maybe
that's
more than
part
one
of
for
that.
Design, and then you can figure out the money. Seems like the design one has to come first.
So I think that's part of that budget that we're talking about. You know, we make the decision as to who it is, you know. Okay, we sit down and say, we need someone to design based on our basic layout, we need someone to design the disc golf aspect of it as well as the trails aspect of it. So it may be multiple RFPs at this point, or at least bidders to that RFP. But again, with your blessing, that's a conversation that I could be having with Tommy and the team at SOBTA over this month, to talk about, you know, what our next steps are moving forward. Paul?
One more question. So that the plan that we're talking about, that was just the general plan with the map that was built primarily by SOBTA. And I think it was them and Jeremy had the disc golf.
Correct.
Yeah, okay. So as far as I know, the snow jumpers weren't involved in that. There is a snowmobile trail in that property. So before that is considered finalized, I'd like to get brought into that to talk about just the sled trail portion of that.
Yeah.
Of that plan.
Yeah, I mean, based on the initial map, tentative map that was presented in the letter of interest for the grant, we were, and correct me if I'm wrong here, Tommy, but we were well under our 9 acres of disturbed land on that property with the trails, the disc golf and the bike trails. So it's, I think our initial concern as a group was that we were going to make this decision and we were going to run out of our 9 acres, and then anything we wanted to do after that was going to trigger an Act 250. And after it was all laid out, after the calculations were done, it doesn't appear that that's the problem anymore. If anything, I think, I don't remember the number right off the top of my head, but it was well under 9 acres that we were going to be disturbing to get that complete.
So I have a concern about that.
Okay.
The point I want to make, I don't know if the sled trails could be an afterthought after everything else is done. But that trail is access to town businesses. That's the only use for it, is for, for commerce. So I want to make sure that, and if there's a trail there, it exists and it's being used, but it could use some more, not a lot, but I think it needs to be considered equally with all the other things that are going to be included in this 9 acres or whatever the 10%.
Okay, and the trail you're referring to now is located where?
So it's at the north end of the property. It comes down from the Mount Snow Golf Course.
Oh, yeah, okay.
And it goes past McCluskey's property and then sort of, it hugs the north end of the property and comes out on the Chapman's property.
Okay. Yep, absolutely.
And it's there, and it's functional. It's just that it's not ideal. It's just not exactly a completely user-friendly trail.
Okay.
So it could use some help to make it, make all these businesses a little more accessible to all customers.
Any other thoughts, concerns? Andy?
Yeah, just a comment, Eric. I think your instincts are correct. When we talked about buying this property and presented it to the select board and they pulled the trigger, it wasn't contingent on any grants. The grant would have been nice for sure, but the town, the people and the select board were behind it without any grants. And its location suggests making it a showcase. I don't see any problem with your plan. I'd say do what you can with the budget. Consider hiring a trail designer. Consider an RFP for a designer who might help you think about budgeting construction costs and different options there. But whatever you decide, I think you're on solid ground with where you want to go, as you just expressed. I think let's go forward.
Thank you, Andy. Thoughts, concerns, comments?
Make a motion to go forward with you and.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Okay. Yeah, so I think the next step would be to make a motion that you allow myself and SOBTA to dive back into the budget and maps, and we can. Some numbers, yeah. Or
I'll make a motion for you to jump into it with stump jumpers and so top.
Second, any discussion?
Hold on, I have a question.
Hannah?
Did we mean that we wanted that motion to be to permit Eric and Southern Vermont Trails, and maybe you want to add some jumpers to revisit budget and mapping in preparation for an RFP process? Is that what you wanted to say?
That is exactly, I think, what Patricia was saying.
That's what I thought. Okay.
Appreciate that. That's actually what Paul had seconded for us as well.
Perfect.
Awesome.
Also, it's really hard on Zoom when more than one of you is making noise at the same time. We can't hear like
Okay.
anything, just as a FYI,
Sorry.
while you're listening to me.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. All right, in the last few minutes here, I wanted to give a brief update on the ice skating rink. So I reached out to Richard Kaplan, who is the property owner at 183 Route 100, also known as the Forge OMT. He is also the property owner just south at 171 Route 100. he has given us permission to explore the use of his tennis courts between those two properties for our temporary ice skating rink, which is very exciting news. It's a nice flat piece of property. It's already, finished as a tennis court. It's not usable as a tennis court at this point, but very usable for an ice skating rink. I went and walked the courts today. There is the potential for, we basically, even leaving buffers around the edge, have the potential for about a 90-foot square. Obviously ice rinks are shaped differently than that, but we do have about 90 feet square that we can use on that tennis court for the ice skating rink. And I did have Patricia look up a little bit of pricing for us, so I'll get to her on that in just a moment. But I also received a response from our friends at VLCT, who helped me to understand the ins and outs of, getting our town insurance to cover the ice skating rink. So we have that information as well. They supplied us with a list of risk management practices and just kind of, signage that we would need to have there, and then, day to day, someone would need to be looking at the rink daily to make sure that it's not melted and, we're not sending people to a pool instead of an ice rink and things of that nature. So I will send this document to Shannon so that when she sends out the minutes, she can share it with you guys as well. Patricia, before we go, did you want to share with us any information you may have found on rink sizes and prices?
Yeah, I did a comparison. I don't know if you have any way of showing it, or basically, if we're looking at, like, you can do a 90 by 90, you can do a custom one. So Easy Ice and NiceRink.com were the two heavy hitters for outdoor rinks, really. And a custom 90 by 90 is like 7,500 and up for Nice Rink, and like 10,000 for an 80 by 100 for Easy Ice. And so that's with like the kits with, sides that you like flip together, and you can like put it together supposedly without tools. That's like everything that goes with it. And then, and with Easy Ice, that's with like a classic height. You can get foam corners for $450. What was interesting to me is I went to Tarps Now, and you can get, they have specific tarp, they have every tarp in the world, and you can get specific tarps for ice rinks that are 6 mil, heavy white poly. 100 by 100 white poly tarp for an ice rink is $11.62. Nice Rink has the exact same thing for almost $1,800 just for the liner. So, I mean, if we have carpenters out there or volunteers, I have like a list of volunteers for fire department and water and all of that, and just different, I had all the grant stuff written down, and just extras, like skate mats, benches, night lights. Just mainly like an organized list of what to do to make an outdoor rink, but the kits sound, pretty easy unless we get volunteers that donate like pressure treated wood and what have you.
Yeah, I think the main piece that we're looking for in terms of, the location we have it is that it does need to be removable at the end of the season and things like that. That is very encouraging that if we had to replace tarps at any point, they're at that price point. That's very nice. Allison?
Where would that be stored when we weren't using it?
I would probably speak to Travis and see if there was a space anywhere at the town garage. I mean, it's literally, from my understanding of it, the original tarp would probably only last the first year, right? So that would probably be disposed of at the end of the first season. And then the rest of it is literally just a frame, which would be, taken apart and could be stacked. Would not take a ton of space up. So I can speak to Travis and our highway department to see if they have any space.
Well, at that cheap price, it could just have a new one every year.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, for $11. Yeah, I Sorry, one more question I had was, will we be charging a fee to people to use this or?
I don't, in my head, I didn't have a fee that I was looking to charge, because with a fee, then you have to have someone there working it. I don't have to tell probably any business owners to go right now, finding people to work is not an easy thing to do, right? So in my head, it was not a paid position. If the ice rink ever got to a point where it was that popular, that we felt the need to have someone working there, then that's something we could absolutely discuss. Paul, before I get to your question, I did just want to mention, so if we move forward with this, we need to come up with a plan for how the rink would be maintained. Okay, how does it get shoveled? Who's taking a look at it for us each day to let us know that it's, safe to be on and things of that nature. So these are all things, as we're going through this process, that we just need to have a good idea of, so that we're not biting off more than we can chew. Paul, you had a question?
That was my question. So I sent some logistics questions. I think it's a great idea. I don't want this to sound like I'm shooting down. I just want us to think it through so that we can be successful and effective. But all the logistics questions. So what kind of maintenance, daily maintenance, or if somebody stopping by to monitor it, or if there's an issue, just so we have that covered, who and how that will be addressed. And I guess it doesn't need to be monitored. We don't need an attendant there. We don't think we do that. If we're successful and it becomes, as popular as we want it to be, I think we should have a plan in the pocket about how we attend it. And then I'm just, should we also tell Driftwood on Rescue that we're doing this, just so they know? I don't think it presents a huge increase in the demand, but it's probably worth telling them, and we might have some insight on, what they want to know about it, or,
Very valid points, and actually a lot of the maintenance type questions are covered in this risk management practices document that I will send out to you all. So Patricia and I will continue the conversation through the month. If anybody else wants to be involved in the conversation, by all means, let us know. And if anybody has any ideas as far as volunteer groups or anything of that nature to help with the process, that would be great as well. Any other questions or comments on that update? Andy McLean.
I'd just like to thank Patricia and yourself for the work. That's fantastic and a great idea. But thank you for the work.
Thank you, Andy. Any other questions, comments, concerns? All right. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn the meeting.
second.
Thank you all very much. Again, agenda items, the Friday before would be absolutely amazing for us. Oh, no, sorry.
Thursday.
The Thursday before at the latest. So that we can get that agenda out the Friday before. Okay. All right, thank you guys. Have a great night. We'll talk soon.
Thank you.
I didn't talk to anybody, that was just, I was. Yeah.
I'm on the Friday.
Are you?
So
I just thought they would be the logical people to